JFK caller. On November 22, 1963, a phone operator in Oxnard, California, received a call just after 10 a.m., warning that John F. Kennedy would die in 10 minutes. After those minutes passed, the caller changed their mind and stated that the president would die at 10:30. The operators believed that the person on the other side of the call was mentally disturbed and disconnected the call at 10:25 that morning. At the same time, President Kennedy was on a motorcade riding through downtown Dallas, Texas. He was shot at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, 10:30 a.m. in California. The mysterious phone call was just one of the hundreds of tips from around the world that were reported to the FBI in the weeks that followed the tragic Kennedy assassination. Even half a century later, speculation about the phone call lives on. The operators said the voice sounded like a middle-aged woman who was very disturbed and worried. The strangest detail is that JFK should have been at the plaza at exactly 10:10 a.m., according to his official schedule. However, he was delayed because of the large crowds he had to greet. Many believe that the caller could have been actress Karen Kupcinet, whose body was mysteriously found at her West Hollywood home just 8 days after JFK's assassination. Casey Nichole. On April 10, 1990, Billy Joe Neesmith, captain of the snapper boat Casey Nichole, and his crew set off on a week-long fishing expedition in the Atlantic. His crew consisted of his brother Nathan, nephew Keith, and family friend Franklin Brantley. At dawn on the second day of the trip, Nathan noticed that the boat was acting up, as it was sluggish and riding deep. Captain Billy saw it had picked up about a foot of water in the hold. To make matters worse, the pumps weren't working correctly, and the power was out, which made the radio useless. Nathan woke the rest of the boat and teamed up to manually bail out the hull with buckets, throwing water overboard. Still, the ship kept sinking, and was taking in water faster than it was going out. Billy Joe and his crew had no other choice but to abandon ship. Quickly, they boarded the life raft, which was old and rotting. It was also relatively small and was not designed to fit 4 passengers. After floating for a while, they noticed the boat's hull moving back towards them on the horizon. Nathan, against the crew's wishes of staying together, rowed on a hatch cover towards the shipwreck in hopes of recovering more supplies. He swam close to the submerged hull and noticed that the raft was now a few miles away, but he lost sight of it by dusk. On the morning of April 12th, Nathan spotted a small freighter boat 3 miles away. He watched as it appeared to stop and circle close to his crewmates for a few hours, but it never came to rescue him. After 4 different course changes, likely picking up his fellow crew members, the boat continued into the horizon, leaving him alone in the Atlantic Ocean. When the boat's bait box dislodged, Nathan turned it into a makeshift raft just before the ship sunk. He drifted for a long time, sunburned, and at risk of dehydration. On April 15th, 1990, 3 days after the accident, Nathan was finally rescued 20 miles off Georgia's coast. No trace of his crewmates was ever found after a large-scale search by the U.S. Coast Guard, but the captain's family believed a freighter boat picked them up. In October of that same year, Nathan and Billy Joe's sister, Oneida, received a phone call from a person speaking only in Spanish, trying to deliver her a message. But the only words she understood were her name and phone number. The caller hung up. That same day, the boat owner, Doug Tyson, received a similar phone call from someone speaking broken English. He recounted this bizarre call with the Neesmiths. 5 more calls came, until March 1991, when the caller finally said one complete English sentence, quote, "I'm bringing them home." Oneida believes the caller was a native Spanish speaker from a foreign country who befriended the captured crewmen and risked his life to communicate with their families. To the U.S. government, though, Franklin, Billy Joe, and Keith were lost at sea and have been declared legally dead for years. These strange phone calls strongly suggest that they were alive, but no more calls or communication has been made. The strong theory is that the freighter boat that picked them up was involved in illegal maritime activity. The Spanish accent spoken by the mysterious caller implies they were taken to Cuba. The abrupt end of the call suggests that the caller may have been discovered by his superiors. Brandon Swanson. On May 14, 2008, Minnesota teen Brandon Swanson celebrated the end of the spring semester with his friends. On his way home, he accidentally drove his Chevrolet Lumina off the road and into a ditch from which he could not get out of. He immediately got out of the car and called his parents on his cell phone to tell them he wasn't hurt. As he wasn't sure of his exact location, he told them he was near or around the city of Lind. Still, they couldn't determine where he was when they drove out to pick him up. He remained on the phone for 45 minutes, trying to help his parents find him by flashing his phone's light on and off. The teenager later talked about walking to a town he could see far off in the distance. Suddenly, Brandon ended the call after yelling out in surprise. What he was referring to remains unexplained. He's not been seen or heard from since. The morning after the accident, the Swanson family reported the missing teen to the police, but they were advised to wait, as this kind of behavior was common amongst young adults his age. But Brandon's parents knew their child would not run off without telling anyone. His disappearance's circumstances became more confusing when his cell phone records showed he'd been 25 miles away from where he said he was. This information led investigators to discover his car near the town of Taunton. No one knows if Swanson lied to his parents when he said he was near Lind, or was confused from either the alcohol or a head injury from the accident. Foul play has not been ruled out, but the most widely believed theory is that Brandon fell into the Yellow Medicine River. Still, extensive searches have not discovered a body. Donna Lass. Donna Lass was a 25-year-old nurse in California who was last seen leaving her shift at 1:40 a.m. on September 6, 1970. Her disappearance is primarily believed to be linked with the infamous Zodiac Killer. Donna walked to her job at the Sahara Hotel Casino. She had plans to meet up with her friend Joanne Getch immediately after work at 2 a.m., but she never arrived. As it was Labor Day weekend, Donna not returning to work was not a matter of concern, especially after an anonymous caller rang her employer, stating that Donna Lass had a family emergency and would be out of town for a while. Her 1968 Chevrolet was later found where she last parked it outside the Monteverde apartments, but she was nowhere to be found. An excavation of a gravesite nearby uncovered a pair of sunglasses similar to the ones Donna wore, but a body has never been recovered. A postcard from the Zodiac Killer reportedly claimed Donna Lass as a victim, but the identity of the anonymous caller was never confirmed. Charles Peck. On September 12, 2008, a commuter train in the San Fernando Valley collided with a freight train. In total, 135 people were injured and 25 were killed. One of the victims was 49-year-old Charles Peck. He worked as a customer service agent for Delta Airlines in Salt Lake City International Airport. He was in Los Angeles for a job interview at Van Nuys Airport. Getting a job in California would have allowed him to marry his fiancée, Andrea Katz. He had 3 children from a previous marriage. Andrea was on her way driving to the train station to pick him up when she heard about the crash on the radio, but was relieved when she received a call from his phone. Peck's family also received calls. During those cruel hours waiting for Charles to be rescued, his cell phone placed several calls to his loved ones, including his son, brother, stepmother, sister, and fiancé. In total, his family members received 35 calls. In the first few hours, Peck's family was excited when they saw his name pop up on their phone. As the calls went on, they were hopeful he was still alive and trapped within the crash's wreckage. Nevertheless, they weren't actually able to talk to him, since all they heard when they answered the calls was either static or silence. However, Andrea Katz used all the opportunities she got to let Charles know that she was thinking about him and sent messages of love and encouragement. The signal from the calls made the crew able to trace the exact whereabouts of the phone. Sadly, Peck was recovered 12 hours after the accident. He died on impact. Yet long past his death, he reached out to his loved ones one last time and led rescuers to his body. The disaster became known as the Chatsworth train crash and is considered the worst commuter train accident in California's history.